This is Our View, the television voice of the Washington Federation of State Employees. Most children start the new year with new toys. We all hope, as does a safety specialist at the Department of Health, that the holiday gifts give only pleasure and not injury.
Well, hopefully all of the toys that were purchased, and consider what maybe grandparents or family members out of town may have given, were age appropriate. Most of the packages are marked with what age is appropriate, and that's especially important with smaller children, or if you have multiple age children. If you have an older child that got toys with lots of small parts, that you make sure those are stored away from younger children, because it can pose a suffocation hazard. It actually doesn't take much to cause suffocation in a small child. So, if about this big, here we go. Anything that can fit in that sort of compartment can be a hazard for a small child. So, that's number one. And then number two, look at the toys that you did get. Do you have the proper safety equipment to use those toys? So if you got a new bicycle or a scooter or a skateboard, or even passes to go skiing, snowboarding, passes to go take a horseback riding class, make sure that you have a helmet. And there are different helmets for different sports. So then look at the toys that not only your child got, but what toys did you get? A lot of adult items these days have small button batteries in them, and those range in size from, I think traditionally, like watch batteries are kind of what most people think of when they think of the button batteries. Many of the electronic devices, the small little remotes that go along with DVD players, you have in your the key fobs, just all kinds of things have these small button batteries in them, and the compartments to secure them are not secured by a screw like most children's toys. Any toy that's designed for a child has to have that compartment secured. We want to make sure that people realize that almost all injuries are preventable, and so just by taking a few precautionary measures, like for instance wearing a helmet, it reduces your risk of head injury by, there's a range of between 60 and 80%. So, we're talking, do you fall, get hurt, maybe break your arm, or do you fall and end up in the emergency room with, traumatic brain injury or worse? So have fun, enjoy life, but do it in a safe way. And, parents have a role in supervising and making sure that kids are given the space to have fun. They're given the opportunity to learn and grow and do all of those things, but to do them in a safe way.
In January, we commemorate the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Earlier this year, Federation members joined in a commemoration of Dr. King's famous March on Washington some 50 years ago.
The importance of that day was to bring the community together. That was the primary focus, to let the community know about the Coalition of Black Trade Unions and what we're doing in their community and what we're doing in other communities. Also, too, it was a commemoration of Dr. King on his march in Washington and others who came before him, like A. Philip Randolph, Dr. William Bill Lucy, to commemorate these people who've given so much of their life and dedicate their service to our community as well to the coalitions of their trades as well. And that's the reason why we thought it was so important to commemorate these individuals and to make sure that our community and our younger generation know who they are and what they've done for us before we came along. And I think it's really important that we educate our community. What do the union stands for? What is the union is about? It's not always about health care. It's not always about our pay. It's about what we value as an individual and what we can give back to our community. Because without our community, we would be nowhere today. I think where we go from here, we don't want to digress, but we want to move forward. I think it's important that for the voters' rights, a lot of people focus on Dr. King's I Gave a Dream speech, but it wasn't about that. It was about injustice. It was injustice for the people, injustice about jobs and community. And I think we need to continue to focus on our jobs. We need to continue to focus on our community, and we need to educate our young people what the community is about, because this is the next generation. And we as older adults is going to be turning this generation over to them. And I think it's important that they have the history and the background, where we came from, in order to know where we're going.
The nation of Qatar is constructing facilities to host the World Cup in 2022. It's a massive project that has so bedazzled the professional sports world they can't see the obvious, horrid conditions that are killing workers there every week. However, this callous treatment of workers by one of the richest nations, even in the Middle East, has not escaped the attention of the International Trade Union Confederation.
Qatar has a $130 billion infrastructure program. Most of that is focused around delivering hotel rooms, transportation infrastructure, stadiums, and all the things that are needed to make one of the world's biggest sporting events a success. The problem is that in the richest country in the world, the country with the richest people in the world, Qatar, the exploitation of workers is unparalleled. 94% of the workforce there are migrant workers, more than 1.2 million people coming from Nepal, coming from India, from elsewhere in South Asia and East Asia, and increasingly from Africa. And they come into the country under what's known as the kafala system, which means they're tied to the employer. The employer owns them. They can't change jobs unless the employer says, okay. They can't leave the country unless the employer gets them an exit visa. This means that we effectively in Qatar have a system of modern day slavery, hundreds of thousands of workers suffering the most appalling exploitation, no union rights, no collective bargaining, no worker voice in safety, appalling living conditions, migrant labour camps that are unfit for human habitation. We started talking about this with FIFA 2 years ago, and we made approaches to the Qatari authorities 2 years ago. We told them the story that we know from the figures of the Indian government, the Nepalese government. At least 400 workers are dying every year. These are young, fit men working in construction. They're dying on the building sites. They're dying at night because of the dehydration of working 12, 14-hour shift in temperatures up to 50 degrees centigrade. One worker every day minimum is dying. Since we first spoke to FIFA, 600 days have passed, 600 workers have died, nothing is being done, except that now we've managed to break the conspiracy of silence and the world is talking about this issue. So now we're going to move to translate that public awareness, that horror that people come to understand when they see what's going on in Qatar, into action. So far there's been a refusal to do anything substantial. Some words out of the Qatar authorities, some words out of FIFA, no concrete action. If there is no concrete action, then FIFA should vote again and consider its decision about giving the World Cup to Qatar in 2022. We're on the case, we're going to stay on the case, and we're going to do everything we can to save lives and improve livelihoods.
A former Secretary of Labor is the star of a film now making the rounds of theaters across the country and is being shown as well on college campuses and in union halls. Its title is Inequality For All. See it, and you'll wonder why we've allowed these conditions to happen.
Now, the thing you ought to know about this Mini Cooper is it is small. We are in proportion, me and my car. My name is Robert Reich. I was Secretary of Labor under Bill Clinton. Before that, the Carter administration. Before that, I was a special aide to Abraham Lincoln. Of all developed nations, the United States has the most unequal distribution of income, and we're surging toward even greater inequality. 1928 and 2007 become the peak years for income concentration. It looks like a suspension bridge.
Last year, we made $36,000.
I probably make $50,000 a year, working 70 hours a week.
The middle class is struggling. Now, people occasionally say to me, what nation does it better? The answer is the United States. in the decades after World War II. The economy boomed, but you had very low inequality.
Do you know Robert Reich?
I do indeed.
He's a communist.
When I was a kid, bigger boys would pick on me. I think it changed my life. I had to protect people from the people who would beat them up economically. Who is actually looking out for the American worker? The answer is nobody. If workers don't have power, if they don't have a voice, their wages and benefits start eroding. We are losing equal opportunity in America. Any one of you who feels cynical, just consider where we have been.
Ross Rieder's history feature this month is an opinion on the continuing story of Boeing and their skilled workforce.
There is a conversation from my high school days that comes back to me frequently. This is not my first opportunity to report it, but seems especially appropriate these days. To the surprise of many who know me, I was deeply involved in ecumenical youth activities. I was even state president of the Council of Churches Youth Ecumenical Organization. So one day, I'm in conversation with the son of the local congregational church minister, the resident intellectual of our high school, about what I don't recall. All I recall is his statement. He said, "It takes an average IQ of 92 to run a small business." Clunk. My American Baptist minister, soon to be my father-in-law, would never have aired such a harsh opinion, nor would he have held it. And in today's market, if I were to comment on the subject, I would include in that statement the leadership of at least many, if not most, of the leaders of our largest corporations. For instance, the one heading the airplane builder in our neighborhood. Here's a company that has spent a century in our midst creating and training tens of thousands of the best, most skilled machinists and technicians on the planet, threatening to move to parts of our country, even to faraway nations, where the century of skills learned here are to be built all over. This is a scenario to a set of speedy course to some frightening failures. I'm angry about it because not since the arrival of the 707 have I hardly ever flown in anything but a Boeing plane. Here's a company suffering its highest profit, a $300 billion backlog of orders, about 3,700 planes. This in the light of our state government granting the largest single tax break in our nation's history to this company. Their behavior is despicable and so full of capitalist greed as to deserve some sort of taking out behind the barn punishment. And that's my humble, unbiased opinion. And I'm proud of the Machinists Union for saying no to cuts.
You've been watching Our View, brought to you by the members of the Washington Federation of State Employees. We remind you, when you accept a paycheck for your hard work, you don't give up your rights. Thank you, and join us again.